מוצאי תפארת שבתפארת, מוצאי בייס אייר, and the eve of Gimel Iyar, Tafshin Pei Beis, and we have a lot to accomplish. I hope to bring some words from the Rebbe Maharash also in connection to our learning. And I want to start with a short maamar. It is a famous maamar from Parshas Kedoshim in Likutei Torah, which is the last one on page 60 or Lamed, V'adarta pnei Zakein, which is today in the Chitas Chumash. Rashi says, V'adarta pnei Zakein. Who is Zakein? Who is called Zakein? Ze shekana chokhmah, the one that acquired wisdom. So Zakein, an elder in Lashon HaKodesh, it means the one who acquired chokhmah. Now, we will go through this maamar quickly. You see, it's a short maamar, and then get into V'nikdashti b'soch bnei Yisrael. And the reason why I would like to go through it is that this maamar is connected with memory. It's connected with Sfiras HaChokhmah altogether, and it is the power of Chokhmah, Koach HaChokhmah, in which our ability to maintain memory is part of. And therefore, Hasidim know that it's very useful to learn this maamar in order to remember the Torah we learn, and especially Hasidus. And many people make a point to learn this maamar Baal Peh in order to reinforce and strengthen their memory in the learning of the Torah, and especially Pnimius HaTorah. So this maamar is definitely a good remedy for fortifying our memory of Torah, memory Bechlal, memory of Torah Bifrat, and specifically Pnimius HaTorah. So let's do it quickly, and then we'll go into V'nikdashti. V'adarta pnei Zakein, this is the left column, the bottom, page 60 in Parshas Kedoshim, Likutei Torah. V'adarta pnei Zakein, ze shekana chokhmah. You should honor and beautify the face of an elder, who is the one that acquired chokhmah. What does it mean, shekana chokhmah? That liknos means to buy or to acquire. Hainu kamo shekatuv v'tofsei haTorah, those who grasp Torah, those who get a hold of Torah. Dahainu, that means מי שתופס במוח הזיכרון וחקוק על לוח ליבו תמיד. The one that is absorbing and grasping Torah in his brain of memory, in his memory brain, which is in the right side of the brain, moach hachokhmah, and what he learns is chakuk al luach libo tamid. What he learns is constantly engraved and carved on the tablet of his heart, which means when we learn by heart and we remember things. כמאמר רז"ל, איזהו תלמיד חכם, כל ששואלים אותו דבר הלכה כולו. As the Chachamim say, Rabbeinu Zichronam Livracha, who can you define as a Talmid Chacham, as a Jewish scholar? Anyone who is asked for Dvar Halacha, who is asked to express his knowledge in discerning Halacha regarding specific case. The one who is asked matters of Halacha, of Jewish law, is the one who is called Talmid Chacham, a scholar, the one who acquires Chokhmah. שאז מצווה לעמוד מפניו גם בשעה שאינו עוסק בתורה. Then, when a person is included in the category of Talmid Chacham, of a Talmid Chacham, it's a mitzvah to stand before that person, even when he is not engaged in Torah. A person like this, a Talmid Chacham, walks in, it's a mitzvah to stand up, even if he is not learning Torah. Why? לפי שהקדוש ברוך הוא שוכן עד בקרבו, גם כשעוסק במילי דעלמא. Because הקדוש ברוך הוא is constantly dwelling within that person, even when he deals with mundane matters. Because he is already remembering the Torah. And that means that the Torah is kept, stored, and remembered in his mind, in his brain. מאחר שהתורה חקוקה במוח הזיכרון שבנשמתו, being that the Torah is carved and engraved, imprinted in the memory brain, in his soul, in the person's soul, ועל ליבו, and upon his heart. ואורייסא וקודשא בריחו כול אחד. And the Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are all and lazois, and therefore כל איש נלבב אשר ידבנו ליבו וקלסה נפשו לדבקה בו יזברך בתמידוס, ולהיות הוויה שוכן בקרבו תמיד בלי שום הפסק ופירוד לעולם, אפילו רגע אחד. And therefore anyone who is getting inspired and is getting touched, and he is aroused in his heart to, with an inspiration, to cleave to God, to come closer to God, and to become attached to God constantly, ongoingly, permanently, and to have God dwelling within him constantly without stop, and without being separated even for one moment, constantly and eternally, even one moment not to be separate. What should a person like that do? יקנה לו התורה במוח הזיכרון שבנפשו. He should acquire Torah with his memory brain, the memory brain of his soul, which means to make a point to learn Torah Baal Peh. And specifically this Maimon. Try to learn even a piece of this Maimon, even 3 lines, 1 line. Learn it Baal Peh. It will be in your brain. She'ad, and the Rebbe will still soon focus on what mainly we should learn. שאז גם אם עוסק בצורכי הגוף, הרי התורה היא בבחינת עלמא דיסקסיה שבנפשו, שמאיר בו יוד של שם הוויה. That in this case, when a person learns Torah Baal Peh by heart, then even when he is engaged in taking care of the matters, the physical or body matters, not spiritual matters, הרי התורה, then in this case, the Torah that he learned Baal Peh by heart is in a state of concealment, of a concealed world in his soul. It's not now in the forefront of his mind, because he's not thinking about it, but he is storing it in his memory. It is there in the memory, and any time he wants, he can bring it up. שמאיר בו, in that memory, in his soul, and the Torah that he remembers, shines the Yud of Shem Havaya. And also in the department of the soul, in which he remembers the Torah that he remembers, shines the Yud of Shem Havaya, because the Moach HaZikaron is connected with the power of Chokhmah. And Chokhmah is connected with Yud of Shem Havaya. שלכן, therefore, בפרשה קדש לי כל בכור כסיב בה ולזיכרון בין עיניך כנודע. Therefore, in the parsha, in that feeling, that it's Parshas Kadesh, Kadesh li kol bechor, it says in this parsha, in that feeling of Rosh, that feeling of the man put on the head, it says in this parsha of sanctifying kol bechor. Spheras HaChokhmah is also called Bechor because it's the firstborn, it's the first sphere. V'Kadesh, Kodesh, Chokhmah is called Kodesh. Spheras HaChokhmah and Keser are called Kodesh, Kodesh without a Vav. Kadesh li kol Bechor. And it says in this parsha, in this portion, in the tefillin shel Rosh, ulezikaron beinenecha, that it should be in a memory between your eyes, to be remembered. Connected to Moach HaZikaron, connected with Chochmah, connected with Yud of Shem Havai. ובזה יובן טעם למה שכתוב בהלכות תלמוד תורה בשם הספרי, שמצווה על כל אחד ואחד לידע כל התורה, שהן כל תרי"ג מצוות ודקדוקיהן חולו. And with this you can understand the reason why in the halachos of the learning Torah, in the name of the Sifri, it states that it's a mitzvah upon each and every one. It's a mitzvah upon each and every one to know the entire Torah, which are all the 613 mitzvahs and their details. Vahainu, that means להמשיך אור הוואי על כל תרי"ג כוחות שבנפשו האלוקיס בפרטותן. That means that when a person learns all the halachas of the Torah, he is bringing down the divine light upon all 613 spiritual aspects of his soul, of his godly soul, in their details. Altogether we have generally 10 kochos, but when they are broken down there are 613, and that is correlating to the 613 mitzvahs. Each mitzvah correlates to another aspect of the nefesh האלוקis. וכמו שכתוב, כולך יפה רעייתי ומום אין בך, כולך דייקה. You are all beautiful, my wife, Hashem says to the Jewish soul, and there is no blemish in you. You are all beautiful. שלכן, גם שורש המשך הזו למעלה כלול מתרי"ג. Therefore, the shorish of this hamshacha, to bring the hamshacha of the divine light upon one soul, that divine light is also to gesund included of 613 aspects. V'nikra b'shem Adam, and this divine hamshacha, divine light that comes into Atzilus, is called from Or Ein Sof into Atzilus, is called Adam, is called man. The way Hashem reveals Or Ein Sof through the 10 spheros and then through the 613 aspects of the 10 spheros. And that's called Adam. ועל דמות הכיסא דמוס כמראה אדם וגומר. As Yeshayahu saw in his prophecy an image upon the throne, upon the divine throne, an image like the image of a man. This is the way Hashem brings him, express himself through the 10 spheres. However, we are living in challenging times. אך מחמס צוק העיתים וקוצר רוח דעת המשיג ועומק המושג. However, because of the troublesome times that we live in and the short spirit of das, we don't have a lot of ability to concentrate, a lot of power of concentration, a lot of time to concentrate. The level of das of people who learn in our times and the omek hamusag, and the depth of what how we grasp, is not as all-encompassing, as deep as it used to be. And therefore, al kol panim, at least, לפחות ישתדל לקבל עוז ותעצומות, at least a person should strengthen themselves and empower themselves, לקנוס ולחקוק במוח הזיכרון שבנפשו, to acquire and to imprint and engrave in the memory brain, in his soul, חמישה חומשי תורת מוישה, the 5 books of Torah Moshe, the 5 Chumashim, אשר כתב מפי הגבורה, that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote from Hashem, from the Mighty One, שהן, which these 5 books are שורש כל התורה שבכתב ושבעל פה כולה, כנודע, and which these are the shoresh, the root of the entire written Torah and the entire oral Torah, is known שרבי עקיבא היה דורש על כל קוץ וקוץ תילי תילים של הלכות. Is known that Rabbi Akiva, on each and every quote, on each and every little crown, little tag, little line on top of the letters of the Torah, he could learn out on each and every one little line like that, one little crown, piles and piles of halachos. רק שהן בהיעלם גדול בעלמא דיסקסיה. Only that they are in the Torah שבכתב, all these piles of halachos that we can learn out from all the hinted tagging of the Torah, the hinting tagging of the Torah, they are all in a state of concealment. That's the Torah שבכתב. And by the way, I call kotz vekotz. Kotz is also something, kotz is the tip of the crowns are called kotz, like the kotz of the yud, the tip on top of the yud. But kotz also means a thorn that pricks and hurts us. And on each kotz vekotz in our life, we can learn tilei tilim, piles and heaps of halachos. Halacha is connected with halicha. We can learn ways of life, and we can learn how to grow, because halacha is connected with halicha. Halicha mechayil el chayil, to be able to grow in a manner of quantum leap. That mainly we grow from our kotzim, from our kots, from that which pricks us. Anyhow, that was a side comment. But Rabbi Akiva could learn from the hints of the Torah shebichsav piles and piles of halachos. Only that in Torah shebichsav, in the written Torah, they are hidden in a state of helem. Ume'alma disgalia, and then from the alma disgalia, the revealed aspect of Torah, which means Torah is Torah shebal peh, al kol panim, and that mainly addresses the man, לפחות at least יקנה ויחקוק, he should acquire and engrave in his memory Seder Kodshim. The Seder Kodshim in the Mishnah, in the Gemara, הנקרא חוכמה בדברי רז"ל. And the Chachamim are called Seder Kodshim in the Mishnah Chochma, because Kodesh is inyan of Chochma. So, ומכפר עוונותיו של אדם, and Seder Kodshim atones for the sins of a person. כמו שכתב האריזל, כמו שביאר, as the Arizal explained. So we are not going right now to learn Seder Kodshim, but we are going to learn a maimar about Kedusha, and about V'nikdashti besoch b'nei Yisrael. Obviously, there is a very intricate connection, an intimate and entangled connection between the Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Kedusha in our life, in our being. And to the extent that we are told, V'nikdashti besoch b'nei Yisrael, this is the next page, page Lamed Aleph in Likutei Torah, already entering Parshas Emor, but we are told, Daber, in the beginning of our Parsha, Parshas Kedoshim, Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael, va'amart alehem kdoshim tiyu, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem. Speak to the Jewish people, says Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu, and tell them that you should be holy because I am holy. God, you God, I am holy. Is that a logical reasoning how it is possible that we should be holy? We should be holy because Hashem is holy? Hashem is infinite. Hashem is almighty. Are we almighty? Hashem is always justful. Are we always justful? I mean, Hashem is perfect. Are we always perfect? Hashem is holy. He's removed from our mundane way of being, from our physical life, and so on. How is it a reasoning that we should be holy because He is holy? Obviously, the reason is because we possess, and our essence is made of the Kedusha of Hashem. We are made of divine stuff. We are made of divine material. And therefore, we can say things, pretentious things, so to speak, like Nagdishach v'na'aritzach. We say Kedusha in Tefillah. We sanctify God. Nagdishach. We are making you holy. Or V'nikdashti besoch b'nei Yisrael, which is the Dibur HaMaschil of the Maimar that we are beginning. It's relatively a long Maimar, doesn't always get a lot of attention because it's a little long, and usually Parshas Emor already brings that into Maimarim of Sfiras HaOmer, but they are very often learned, and Dafka had somehow an idea to learn Dafka this Maimar, and in connection to the Kedusha of Parshas Kedoshim, and the fact that we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh every day in davening. And this Maimar is expounding on very central topics of Hasidus Bichlal and goes deeper into some of them. So what does it mean, V'nikdashti besoch b'nei Yisrael? I should be sanctified, says Hashem, in the midst of Bnei Yisrael. And the Rebbe begins the Maimar with a few questions that are obvious questions, but until they are asked, they are not obvious. So first of all, V'nikdashti besoch Bnei Yisrael. Lehavin ma'u leshon toch. Why it says V'nikdashti besoch Bnei Yisrael, toch Bnei Yisrael. V'nikdashti b'Bnei Yisrael. Why it says besoch? In the inside Bnei Yisrael. What does betoch means? וגם צריך להבין מאמר הז"ל בעניין שיש ג' כיתות מלאכים. Also we have to understand the statement that our rabbis make that there are 3 groups of angels that are very much involved with our davening. And our davening reflects these 3 groups. Before Shema we mentioned them. Kas achas omeres kadosh, vekas achas omeres kadosh kadosh, vekas achas omeres kadosh 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 havai Hashem tzvakois v'gomer. Kedeisa bekulin, daf tzadik aleph amud beis. So we are told that there are 3 groups of malachim, of angels. One group says 1 time kadosh, holy. One group, the second group says 2 times kadosh, 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 holy, holy. And the third group says kadosh, 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 havai tzvakois. 3 times, as we say in our davening, as brought in Masechus Chulin in the Gemara. ורוצה לומר, and it means שהכס האחס אומרת פעם אחת קדוש, וכס הבייס כופלים ואומרים בייס פעמים קדוש, וכס הגימל גימל פעמים, כמו שאנו אומרים. And it means that the first group says 1 time holy, the second group doubles and says 2 times holy, and the third 3 times holy, as we do say, kadosh, 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 Hashem tzvakois. What is that? וגם צריך, that's second question. So we are learning about this Kedusha, Kedoshim tiyu, Kedusha, v'nikdashti, nakdishach, we are sanctifying God. וגם צריך להבין מה שכתוב בנזיר גם כן לשון קדוש. Also we need to understand, third question, What is it that regarding a Nazirite, a Nazir, the one that refrains from drinking wine or grape products, that is called in the Chumash, in the Torah, in Bamidbar, chapter 6, Pasuk 5, Kadosh yeh, gadel perachulu. A Nazir should be Kadosh, should be holy, he should grow his hair wild. So the Nazir that is not allowed to cut his hair while he is refraining from wine and grape products, he is called also Kadosh. What is the connection between Kadosh and a Nazir? That will lead us to a little broader elaboration of the Rebbe on the connection between Kedusha and Sa'aros, and hair, which is the reason why married women cover their hair, as we will discuss in Yirtzeh Hashem. Now we have another question. So far we want to understand what does it mean that Hashem should be sanctified within Bnei Yisrael. What does it mean that there are 3 sects of Malachim, groups of angels that say Kadosh, 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 and 3 times Kadosh, again the inyan of Kadosh? And what does it mean that the Nazir is called Kadosh? And then another question, fourth question. In Yeshayahu, when he saw the chariot, he saw the Srafim, the highest Malachim that are called Seraphis, the Srafim, that burn away with their daily, with their chukah, with their yearning to merge into godliness, into infinity. But the way Yeshayahu, the prophet Yeshayahu, described the position of the Srafim, of these angels, he states that the Srafim, ksiv Srafim omdim mimalo. Srafim are standing higher than the image of man on the chariot, higher than Shechina. V'yesh le'avin, the image of man on the divine throne represents the Shechina. And we need to understand, asked the Rebbe, איך ייתכן שיעמדו ממעל השכינה, והלא הם נבראים בעלי גבול? How is it possible that the Srafim, those high angels that are called Srafim, would stand above the Shechina? Aren't they creations that are finite? And the Shechina is godliness? How come finite creations like angels are standing above the Shechina? That's question number 4. It will all tie together. Bezat Hashem. And then there's question number 5. That's the last question for now. Question number 5 is, it says in Tehillim, chapter 36, Lamed Vav, Pasuk Vav, Ki imcha mekor chaim. In Tehillim, David HaMelech states, Ki imcha mekor chaim, be'or chanirei or. With you, God, is the source of life, and with your light we will see light. But here the Rebbe is focusing on Ki imcha mekor chaim. Ve'lama lo ne'emar ve'ata chulu. Why David HaMelech doesn't say you are a source of life? You, God, are a source of life. You are our source of life. Why he says that with you is our source of life, which means secondary to you. With you. It's not you. You're not the source of life. With you is the source of our life. That's the 5th question. Now, to understand all these questions, Yuvan kol ze be'akdim. So I'm repeating the questions. What does it mean, Nikdashti besoch b'nei Yisrael, inside b'nei Yisrael, Hashem should be sanctified? What does it mean, the three groups of Malachim that say Kadosh, holy, sanctification, 1 time, 2 times, and 3 times the way we do? What does it mean that the Nazir is called also the one who is refraining from wine and growing his hair wild? Is called Kadosh, holy. What does it mean, and how is it that the Srafim, the Yeshayahu saw, are standing above the Shekhinah, mimal, the image of man, while they are created beings, finite? In order to get to the answer to these questions, and the last one, I'm sorry, is how come it says, Imcha mekor chaim, with you, God, is the source of our life, not that you are our source of life. Beata. In order to understand all this, v'yuvan kol ze behakdim, we first have to understand lehavin pirush ve'inyan kadosh. So first we have to understand what kadosh means altogether. Dehine kadosh Perusho muvdal. So there will be terms that you heard before, and I remember Rabbi Itzke Ginsburg alav shalom, that I used to learn Hasidus with him Shabbos mornings. He used to say, Hasidus is so boring, always talking about the same topic again and again and again, about God, about the Or and Sof, about the Shtalshalut, but that's when you are remaining on the surface of Hasidus. But when you get in and you dive into Hasidus, it looks like you're talking about the same topics, but you uncover worlds and worlds and worlds within each one of them. So we will dive into some aspects of some of the topics. So let's first dive into the concept of Kadosh. Any comments or questions so far? So Dehine Kadosh Pirusho Muvdal. Kadosh means separate. Dehainu, כמו שכתוב, אני הווה לא שניסי, שאין שום שינוי אצלו יתברך בין קודם בריאת העולם לאחר שנברא. Like by Hashem, when Hashem states, I Havaya did not change, meaning there is no change by Hashem at all between before the creation of the world and after the world is creation. He didn't make any change in God. וכמאמר, as it says, אתה הוא קודם שנברא העולם ואתה הוא לאחר שנברא, as we said in the beginning of davening, that you are before the world is created and you are after it's created, which means there is no שינוי. רוצה לומר שאין שום שינוי והספיילוס חס ושלום אצלו יתברך מבריאת העולם. It means to say that there is no change or impact or effect on God from the creation of the world at all, none whatsoever. וכמו שכתוב, אני ראשון ואני אחרון. As it says, I am first and I am last. It says before 18 from the Navi. והיינו, לפי שהוא יתברך מובדל מכל העולמות. It's because Hashem Yisbarach, blessed be Him, is removed and separate from all worlds. דהיינו, meaning, שהיוסו מחיה ומהווה העולמות, אינו כמו שהנפש מחיה את הגוף. That the way Hashem animates and creates the worlds is not the same way that the soul animates the body. שמהות הנפש ממש מתלבשת בתוך הגוף לאחיוסו, והרי נתפסת ממש בתוך הגוף. When it comes to the soul itself is invested and enclosed in the body to animate it. And that means that the soul is mamash caught up in the body. ומתחלק החיוס המתפשט ממנה בהגוף לגימל חלקים, שהוא החיוס שמלובש במוחין שבראש, והחיוס שבגוף, והחיוס שברגליים. So when the nefesh itself is invested in the body and is caught in the body, engaged in the body, then the highest of the nefesh, the life force of the soul in the body, is then divided to three parts. The highest that is invested and enclosed in the brains, in the head, the rosh, the highest in the torso, in the body, and the highest, the life force of the raglaim, of the legs, of the feet. שהחיוס המלובש בהראש נעלה יותר הרבה מחיוס שבגוף, כנראה בחוש שבראש הוא כל פנימיוס החיוס. That the highest that is invested in the head is way higher than the highest of the body. The highest in the head is way higher than the highest in the body. As we see tangibly that in the head is the entire pnimius achayus. The pnimius, the inner life of the person is in the head. The haino meaning, כוח המחשבה והשכל והחושים המעולים שבפנים, ראייה, שמיעה, חולו. What is in the head? The power of thought, the intellect is in the head. The higher senses are in the face, like the power of seeing, the sense of seeing, חוש הראייה, the sense of hearing, חוש השמיעה. All those higher powers and senses are in the head. והחיוס שבהגוף הוא למטה מבחינה זו. And the chayus in the torso, in the body, is lower than the chayus, the quality of the chayus in the head. דהיינו ששם משכן המידות שבלב, שהם למטה מהשכל. וגם כוח המעשה שבידיים, הוא למטה במדרגה מן החושים שבפנים, ראייה ושמיעה חולו. So the chayus of the body is lower than the life force of the head. That means that there in the body, in the torso, is where the midos of the heart are dwelling, which the midos of the persons, the emotions of the person are lower than the intellect of the sechel of the person, and also the power of action of the hands is lower than the senses of the face, like seeing or hearing. They are more sublime and more spiritual, a higher quality than the power of action, which is more coarse, slower. So the area of the torso is lower than the area of the head. That's the second area. ואחר כך ברגליים. And then the third and lowest area of the human stature is in the legs. The chayus יותר למטה מבחינת החייס שבגוף. There the chayus is the lowest than the chayus, and lower than the chayus in the torso. The only thing you have there is lower things like walking and so on. וכל זה מפני שהמוחין שבראש הם מקבלים תחילה החיוס, ומבחינת פנימיוס יותר, היינו מפנימיוס הנפש, ואחר כך מבחינה התחתונה שבראש נמשך לגוף כולו. All this happens because the brains in the head receive first the chayus, the life force from the soul. And also the brains in the head receive from an inner aspect of the chayus of the soul, from pnimius hanefesh. So, and then from the lowest aspect of the chayus of the head, from the lowest aspect of the life force of the head, now goes down to the torso, to the guf, to the body. And therefore, לכן, החיוס שבגוף הוא למטה במדרגה מהחיוס שבראש. וכך על דרך זה מהגוף לרגליים. And therefore, since the highest of the body comes from the external, from the lowest level of the highest of the head, the highest of the body is lower. And so too, the highest of the legs and the feet would be lower because they are coming from the lowest and most external aspect of the highest of the body. So you see that there is chalkus, there is a division, and there is a shtalshelus. There is a devolvement. הרי שהחיוס המספשט ממהוס הנפש מתחלק לג' חלקים כלליים הנ"ל, ראש וגוף ורגליים, ויש בכל אחד כמה איברים פרטיים כנודע. So the chayus, the life force that is extended from the nefesh itself into the body, is divided to gimel chalakim, to three parts, three general parts, klalim, that we mentioned, which is the head, the torso, and the legs. And in each one, there are many organs, specific organs as known. They also the digestion system, the breathing system, there are many, many organs, but they are all parts of the three general sections of the body. אך בכלל הם ג' בחינות הנ"ל. Generally, there are these three aspects and principles of head, body, and feet. And this template shows up in creation all over. That is also Bria, Yetzira, Nasiya, Machshava, Dibur, and Maise. We will see that in Mirz Hashem. Now, but here we are focusing on comparing the chayus of the nefesh, the way the nefesh animates the body, to the way Hashem animates the world. And the Rebbe is teaching us that it's not the same. That in regarding Hashem, He is not at all affected by creating and animating the world, unlike the soul, when it animates the body, definitely gets affected, and not only that it enters the soul, but we see that the chayus, the life force that enters the body, that the life force from the soul that enters the body is divided, and it has different levels, divided to three general levels, and each one has its details, and one lower than the other. ושינוי בחינותיהם הוא מצד שינוי גילוי החיוס הנמשך להם מהנפש כנ"ל, שבראש מאיר בחינה עליונה מהנפש חולו. And the change in between these three aspects, the chayus of the head, the chayus of the body, and the chayus of the feet, is because of the change in the revelation of the chayus that is extended to those parts of the body from the soul. That in the head shines the higher aspect of the soul, and in the body lower, and in the feet lower. ונמצא. So what do we conclude from all this? שחיוס הנפש נתפסת ומתלבשת ממש בסוך כלי הגוף. That the life force of the soul is mamash caught up and invested and engaged in the vessels of the body. ולכן, and therefore, מתחלק החיוס הזה המתפשט ממנה ונתפס בהגוף לפי מהות הכלים של הגוף. And therefore, since the nefesh is really invested in the body and enclosed in the body, therefore, this life force from the soul that is extended from it and is invested in the body is contained in the body according to the nature of the kelim, the vessels of the guf. That being that the vessels of the brains of the head are higher than the vessels of the body, the organs of the head are higher than the organs of the body, they are more refined, therefore they receive a higher aspect from the chayus of the soul, shehu koach hamachshava v'aseichel kanal, which is the power of thought, the power of thinking and the intellect. So we see that in the way the body animates the soul, there is this chalkus, there is this vision, there are levels, and it is correlating and corresponding to the vessels of the body. אבל, however, מה שהוא יזבח מחייס העולמos, the way Hashem animates the world is not the same. Eino ken is not like the soul, the way the soul animates the body. שאין בו בחינת ישחלקוס כלל חס ושלום, that there is no Hischalkus, division, in that light of Hashem that animates the worlds at all. The Rebbe will soon challenge it, and that's how we will get deeper into this subject. But right now, let's follow what the Rebbe is saying. We need to understand that in the way Hashem animates the worlds, there is no Hischalkus, there is no different levels, there is no divisions at all. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. It's all one. ולא שייך כלל לומר אצלו ראש בסוף כלל. And it's not שייך at all, it doesn't apply regarding godliness to say that creates and animates the world, that it has a rosh and an end, a top and a bottom, a head and a feet, at all. כי הוא ראשון והוא אחרון. He is the first, he is the last, no change. והיינו לפי שהוא יזבח אינו מסלבש כלל בסוך העולמות. The reason why there is no מעלה מטה, higher lower, division, changes, parts in the godliness that creates and animates the worlds is, there is no such thing, is because he is not invested and enclosed at all in the worlds. He remains aloof. He remains separate. He remains exalted. ולא כמו שהנשמה מסלבשת בגוף כנ"ל. It's not the same way that the neshama is actually invested and enclosed in the body, dressed in the body. ולהיות כן, and being that this is the case, that Hashem is not enclosed and not invested, אין שייך כלל בחינת ישחלקוס באחיוס שהוא מהווה העולמות. It doesn't apply at all to look for any division, any parts, any division, any levels in the life force with which Hashem creates the worlds. דהישחלקוס הוא מצד האסלאפשוס כנ"ל. We already understood that Hischalkus, which means division to different parts, comes as a result of Islapshus. When there is Islapshus, when there is an investment of light in a keli, like the soul in the body, the organs of the body, when there is an Islapshus, when there is an investing, an enclosement, then we can expect Hischalkus, Chalakim. Then we can expect parts. We can expect different divisions. Why? Because there are different vessels. And different vessels can contain different lights. So you will see Hischalkus. דלפי, כנ"ל, as we said before, דלפי שכלי המולכינה עלים יותר, לכן מסלבש בהם בחינה עליונה יותר חולו. Because the vessels of the kelim of the moichin, the brains, the head, are higher, therefore a higher aspect of the soul is invested in them. וזהו דווקא בבחינת החיוס המסלבש בתוך הכלים, שייך לומר כן. This, that there is Hischalkus and division and levels, you can only apply, you can only say, when you're talking about chayus, life force that is invested and enclosed in vessels. מה שאין כן בו יזברך. This is not the case regarding godliness. שהיוסו מחיי העולמוס אינו על ידי שמסלבש בסוכן כלל. That the way Hashem animates the worlds is not by being invested and enclosed in them at all. הילקח, therefore, לא שייך כלל שום ישחלקוס כלל ועיקר, גם באחיוס שנמשך ממנו לאחיוסם, כיוון שאינו מסלבש בסוכן. Therefore, it's not שייך at all, any schalkus, any division of levels or parts at all in that life force that is extended from Hashem to animate the worlds, because he is not invested in them, he is not enclosed in them. Vezeu perush b'inyan kadosh. This is the meaning and the idea of kadosh. Dehainu shehu yisbarach kadosh umuvdal me'a'olamos. That means that Hashem, blessed be Him, is exalted, separate and above from the worlds. Ve'af al pi shemechayeh u'mehaveh otan me'ayin. Even though He animates the worlds and brings them to existence out of nothingness, im kol zeh, nevertheless, the way He does it is not by being invested in them, being enclosed in them. Eino mislabesh besochan chulu. He is not invested in them. Ulefichach, and therefore, ein shum shinui v'ispilus etzlo yisbarach me'abriah. And therefore, there is no change or effect or impact on godliness from creation or by creation. God does not change by the creation of the world whatsoever, not a dent. Ma she'en ken haneshama. This is not the case regarding the soul. Mispaeles mimikre aguf. The soul is affected and impressed by the occurrences of the body. And we know that if the body doesn't feel good, the mood of the person, the soul is affected, and the functioning of the soul is affected. Lefi shemislabeshes v'nispeses be'aguf kanal. Because the soul is invested and is enclosed and is engaged and caught up in the body. Therefore, there is a very big impact of the body on the soul and the soul on the body, because the soul is invested and enclosed in the body. So far, the Rebbe is pointing a big difference between the way Hashem creates the world and animates the world, brings them to existence and animates them, and the way the soul animates the body. The soul animates the body by being invested and enclosed in it, and therefore higher organs receive higher light from the soul. Inner light from the soul. Higher light. And lower kelim of the body, lower organs receive lower light from the soul. And the soul is affected by the body, and vice versa. By Hashem is not like this. Hashem doesn't create and doesn't animate the worlds by being invested in them, and therefore he is not impacted by the creation and the animation of the worlds, and therefore there is no ischalkus, there is no division in that light that creates and animates the world. But now the Rebbe will challenge it with a question, which will get us deeper into the Maimar Be'ezras Hashem. Ve'omnam tzarich lahavin. We have to understand. However, we have to understand. On page Lamed Aleph, left, the beginning of the left column on top. Ve'omnam, however, tzarich lahavin. We have a question here, and we need to understand. שהרי בבריאת העולמות יש גם כן איסחלקוס מדרגוס אין קייס. כידוע בעניין השתלשלוס העולמות, גבוה מעל גבוה שומר חולו. Wait a minute, asked the Rebbe. Isn't it that in the creation of worlds in Seder Ishtalshelus there is a schalkus of many, many uncountable levels? There are many levels in Seder Ishtalshelus. Many worlds, in each world there are many levels, in each level there are many levels, in each world there are many worlds. So many levels in case. Kayadua is known regarding the evolvement of worlds, gavoa mal gavoa shomer. There's higher and higher and higher and higher. Higher level over the lower level. So many levels. וגם בעולם הזה, how come is there no חלקוס? Even in this world you see, אנו רואים חילוקי מדרגות, That's Cham, Domem Tzomeach Chai Medaber. We see even different madrigos of levels of beings in this world. The inanimate, the mineral life, the Tzomeach, the plant life, the animal kingdom, and humans. There are different levels of beings, different levels of chayus. There is a schalkus. Why are you saying there's no schalkus? No division. וגם בכלל הוא ישחלקוס לגימל בחינס כללים. כמו שכתוב ולכבודי בראסיו יצרתיו אף עשיסיו, שהם גימל עולמות כללים. And even generally, you do find that the divine life force and the divine, the life force that animates the world is also divided. The created world is also divided to three general aspects, which is reflected in the pasuk lichvodi, for my honor, which means atzilus, b'atziv yetzartiv af asisiv. I created the world, I formed it, and I made it, which correlates to bria, yetzira, and asiya, the world of creation, the world of formation, the world of actualization, which are the three created worlds. She'en gimel olamos klalim. These are three general worlds that each one of them contains many, many levels. So we see that in creation there is correlation to the body of the person, that just as we have the head and the torso and the feet, the created worlds also have the head, bria, the torso, the yitzira, and the feet, asiya. So how come you say that the chayus that animates the world is not divided? It is. Uvahem, and in them, in the three general worlds, pratim rabim, many details and many levels. Gan Eden ha'elyon, Gan Eden ha'tachton, ve'olam hazeh. In Bria you have the higher Gan Eden, which is like the pnimius of Bria. In Yetzira you have the Gan Eden ha'tachton, the lower Gan Eden. And then you have olam hazeh, this world. Vehu mamash על דרך משל כישחלקוס החיוס שבגוף האדם. And it is mamash, it's really similar to the division of the life force in the body of a human. שמתחלק בכלל לגימל בחינות, ראש וגוף ורגל. That is generally divided to three levels, three aspects, the head, the torso, and the feet. וכך העולם הזה, כסיב בו והארץ אדום רגלי. And so too the worlds. This world is called Haaretz, this world, our world, the world of Asiya, the earth, the Haaretz, is called Hadom Raglai, the footstool of Hashem. Hashem calls it where I put my feet on. This is our world, corresponding to the feet. וגן עדן התחתון הוא כמשל הגוף, ששם משכן המידות שבלב. And the lower Gan Eden, which is Yetzira in Yetzira, is similar to the torso, to the goof, to the body, where there is the mishkan, where the midos of the person dwell, the heart, which is corresponding to the world of Yetzira. וכך נודע, and so it's known, the shish sfira mekanenin beYetzira, that the six midos are dwelling in the world of Yetzira. That's the heart, the torso, דהיינו ששם גילוי מידויsav יזברך, חסד חולו. Meaning that in Yetzira is the gilui of the midos of Hashem, like in the heart, in the torso is the gilui of the midos of a person, the emotions of the person. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, so on. וגם מויכין חב"ד מסלבשים בהמידות. And also, like in the heart, in our emotions, there are the moichin of Chabad that are invested in emotion. We love because we think something positive about something, so we love it. And we hate something because we think something negative about it. So we see that there is a division in the worlds. There is this, you see, Asiya is one level, Yetzira is another level, and then Gan Eden ha'elyon, and then the higher Gan Eden, which is in Bria. Sham gilui b'chinas Chabad atzmam ve'Ein Sof Baruch Hu. There is a gilui of Chochma Bina Das of Ein Sof, of godliness. The Chabad from Atzilus are shining in Bria. לנשמות היושבים ביניהן in Miziv. To the neshamos that are dwelling and basking and benefiting from this light, from this radiance of the Chabad, the divine Chochmah Binah and Das. That's what shines in the world of Bria, especially Bina. והוא כמו על דרך משל הראש, שבו משכן השכל. And that's like the head, where the mind is, the intellect is. That's like Bria. ואם כן, and if this is the case, מובן מזה שהחיוס הנמשך ממנו יסברך בעולמוס גם כן מתחלק בסוכן לחילוקי מדרגוס, כמו על דרך משל חיוס המתפשט מהנפש בהגוף כנ"ל. והאיסחלקוס נמשך מצד אסלאפשוס בכלים. So, we have a question here, because from all the description we just described, how the godliness of Asiya is the lowest, and the life force of Yetzirah is higher, and the life force of Bria is even higher, corresponding to the feet and the torso and the head. So we see from this that the life force that is drawn from God into the world is also divided in them to different levels, like similar to the chayus that extended from the soul into the body. And the chayus that is extended, that is drawn from the soul into the body, is divided, and the division is happening because of the islabshus in kelim, because the soul is mislabesh, is invested into the different organs of the body. So what's going on? It looks like the divine life, the divine light, the godliness that creates and animates the world also is divided to three parts. So it looks like it also is mislabesh. It looks like it's also invested and changes. And we see variations of levels in creation, these higher worlds and lower worlds. ואם כן, if this is the case, נראה שהחיוס הנמשך ממנו יסברך גם כן מסלבש בסוכם. So if this is the case, it looks like the chayus that is drawn from God is actually invested in the worlds. וכן נמצא לרז"ל בהדיא, and we actually find that the Chachamim are saying in the first perek of Brachos, in the Gemara, שדימו המשחס החיוס ממנו יסברך לעולמוס לסדר המשחס החיוס מהנפש בהגוף. That actually Chazal did compare between the Amshacha of Chayos from God in the world to the order of the Amshacha of the Chayos from the soul into the body. We find in Maseches Brachos a comparison. והוא מה שאמרו רז"ל. This is what the Chachamim, the Rabboseinu, our rabbis state. מה הקדוש ברוך הוא מלא כל העולם, אף הנשמה מלאה את כל הגוף. In page Yud, Amud Aleph, the first page of Amud of Daf Yud in Gemara Brachos, in the first perek of Brachos, it says, just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu fills the world, so too the neshama fills the entire body. Here is a comparison. We just learned that there is no comparison. ובמדרש תהילים, in the Medrash Tilim, al pasuk Barchi Nafshi, on the pasuk Barchi Nafshi is a vaya that we just said yesterday, Rosh Chodesh, Amru, they say in the Medrash, מה הנפש ממלא את הגוף, כך הקדוש ברוך הוא ממלא את העולם. Just as the soul fills up the body, so too God fills up the world. והרי עניין שהנשמה ממלא הגוף הוא בבחינת אסלאפשוס ותפיסה ממש כנ"ל. But we know that the way the soul fills up the body is in a manner of being invested and being caught up in the body. So how come we say it's not the same it's not the same as the way Hashem animates the body? ואם כן, if this is the case, from these two statements of Chazal and the Medrash, אם כן מדמים כן עניין הסלבשוס החייס ממנו יסברך בעולמוס. So they are comparing to the soul and the body, they're comparing the chayos of God in the world to the soul and the body. וזהו לכאורה ההפך ממה שנסבאר, דהוא יסברך קדוש ומובדל, ומחייס העולם שלו על ידי סלבשוס חס ושלום. And this seemingly is the opposite of what was explained before, that Hashem, blessed be him, is kadosh, is holy and separate and exalted and aloof, and animates the world not by being invested in. God forbid. Vehu, and this, that Hashem is not caught up and not invested in the world, even though He creates and animates it, hu klal gadol b'Torah. It's a big rule in Torah. It's a big principle in the Torah philosophy. In the attitude we should have to life, in the attitude we should have to creation. It's a big rule. It's a big principle. What the principle? The Chanodah, and it's known. The iu tafis bekula almin, veleis man the tafis bei. That Hashem, He is present in all worlds, and He can tafis, He can grasp all worlds, but no worlds can grasp Him. So that's the question which we will dive more next time to understand what Kedusha is and how Hashem animates not bederach hislabshus. How is it possible? But just to not to let you go to sleep with the questions and having, God forbid, restless sleep, we will just begin by reading another couple of lines. And the Rebbe says, the idea is like this. How do we solve this conflict, so to speak, this problem? That on one hand, Hashem is not caught up in the world when He creates it and animates it, and therefore there is no chalkus, there is no division in the light, there is no impact, there is no change, there is whatsoever, but no impact by Hashem, on Hashem by creation. And at the same time, we see that there are different levels and different worlds and different chayos, and we know that Ischalkus, division of levels, comes from Islabshus, from being invested and engaged and caught up. And Hashem is not. How is it possible? Acha'inyan, the vadai. I'm now in the middle of the left column, the line that starts, the tafis bei, under the line that starts klal gadol b'Torah. After the third word, Acha'inyan, the idea is like this. The vadai, surely, יש בחינת חיוס המסלבש בעולמות בפנימיוס הממש ומסחלק חילוקי מדרגוס כמשל ישחלקוס חיוס הנפש בגוף. We are not hallucinating, says the Rebbe. Surely, there is surely an aspect of life force that is enclosed and invested in the worlds, in them, in their pnimius, in them, literally, mamash. And that chayus is divided to different myriads madregos levels, similar to the hischalkus of the chayus of the soul in the body. Similar thing happens in the world as well. Surely there is chayus that is divided to different levels. So what? So how do you resolve that? That Hashem is kadosh and not invested? אך כללוס בחינס חיוס זה, המסלבש בעולמוס, הוא רק בחינס זיו השכינה לבד. זיו דווקא מבחינס הנקרא שכינה. The general chayus, this general chayus, general, why? Because generally the entire chayus that afterwards is divided to Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, and each one has myriads of levels. Meaning, this chayus, this life force, this energy that is, the general chayus that is invested in all these worlds, is only a radiance from the Shechina. So we have the Shechina, the aspect of divinity that is called Shechina, which is already not Elokus, not not directly Elokus itself. It's the aspect of Elokus that relates to worlds. And from this Shechina, it's only a ray, a radiance from the Shechina. It's not even the Shechina itself. It's a radiance from that Shechina. A radiance from that Shechina that is an aspect of godliness. That radiance is the general life force that creates and animates the worlds and is invested in them. והוא הנקרא גם כן ממלא כל עלמין. And this is also called the energy that is ממלא כל עלמין, the aspect of godliness that fills all the worlds. That aspect of godliness that is not godliness itself in relation to itself, rather it's an external aspect, and even that is only a ray of that, only a radiance, only a ziv of that. That aspect that animates the world is invested in the world and is subjected to levels and to division. And that is called Memale Kol Almin. Next time, Bezrat Hashem, we will learn more. What is the difference between this light and the other light, and how is it that this aspect of godliness that is invested in the world doesn't create any change in God? So all this has to be really understood thoroughly, and it has to be engraved in our consciousness and in our mind, so we are godly, walking godly beings, even when we're not thinking about these topics in the moment, because we studied them and we reflected upon them, and we do it hisboinenus and meditated upon them so much that they become part of us. So, Im Yirtzeh Hashem, next time we will continue into resolving these questions regarding the Nikdashti Besoch Bnei Yisrael, the three groups of Malachim, Kadosh, the Nazir, the hair, which is connected with Kedusha, and women cover the hair, and also the Srafim that stands above the divine man and at the chariot. Just to end, today was Tiferet Shebetiferet, the Rebbe Maharash, who says about Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. I just happened to open a book from the Rebbe Maharash today, and it was talking about Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. And that is the Inyan. The Rebbe said all kinds of very interesting about the various things, interesting things about it, but I only bring a few points. One is to mamshich, to bring down. Why we say shalosh pa'amim, gimel pa'amim, kadosh, 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 to mamshich, to bring down from chokhmah and bina into the midos. The way we bring from chokhmah and bina into the midos, we do it through the three kavim of Chachan, Baga, and Dati, which means when we go down from the theoretical to the experiential, from the head to the torso, from the mind to the heart, we have to bring down the light from the moichin to the middle through the three lines of Chachan, Chochmah, Chesed and Netzach, that's the right line. Baga, which means Bina, Gvura, and Hod, that's the left line. And Dati, which is Das, Tiferet, and Yesod, which is, and eventually Malchus, which is the middle line. And that's why we say Kadosh, 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 to bring down from the Moichin of Atzilus, from Chochmah and Bina and Atzilus, down to the Midos of Atzilus. Why do we want to bring it down from the Moichin of Atzilus to the Midos of Atzilus? Because from the Midos of Atzilus, that's where we draw our life force. It's through the 6 Midos of Atzilus that the world was created. Yom Rishon, Thursday, Keneged Chesed, Monday, Keneged Gvura, and so on. So we are bringing down divinity in our own self, from the theoretical to the real, to the experiential, through the three aspects of the right, left, and middle lines, that the main hischalkus of these lines happens in the middle, in the heart. Kava Yamin, the chesed, the right line, the left line, and the middle line. Also, the Rebbe Maharash says that we want to mamshich, to bring down the kedusha of Hashem in also 3 times kadosh, 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 because we want to bring down, to draw down the kedusha, the holiness, the divinity of Hashem into our consciousness and into our being, in the 3 aspects of our being, which are machshava, dibur, and maaseh. We want to bring the kedusha of Hashem, kadosh, 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 into the way we think, into the way we express ourselves, and into the way we act. And also, our task is to bring down the kedusha of the divinity of Atzilus and higher into the created worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And that's why we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh 3 times. Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. There's much more to say about it, but I'll end with a little Kabbalistic end that probably will please you, Sterne, who always makes a point that Ha'ikar Ha'maaseh, that even though we say 3 times Kadosh, because there are mitzvahs that are connected with machshava, there are mitzvahs that are connected mainly with dibur, there are mitzvahs that are connected mainly in maaseh, and Hashem is kadosh from all of them. They are all important. However, as Turner always states, reflecting the Rebbe's guidance, that ha'maaseh hu ha'ikar, and therefore the malchus, which is maaseh, our world, is eshes chayil ateres ba'ala. Eshes chayil ateret ba'ala, that's malchus, is going to be ateres ba'ala, the crown, the keser. The la'atid lavo, the malchus will be the atara, will be the crown. And this is why eshes chayil, and by this I'm ending. Why eshes chayil ateres ba'ala? Why a woman of chayil, of valor, chayil, is the crown of a husband? Because chayil is gematria 48. Moach. And 48 are the numbers, is the number of letters that is in the 2 times that we say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso Leolam Va'ed, after saying Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. When we say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso Leolam Va'ed, we are stating that our mission to bring godliness from Malchus of Atzilus into the created worlds, and to do it ultimately through physical mitzvahs in this physical world. And therefore, Eshes Chayil, Chayil is Gematria 48. 48, because Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso Leolam Va'ed is 24. But we say Shema twice a day, in the day and in the night, and each time we say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuso Leolam Va'ed, the Maaseh HaMitzvos Bepo'al Mamash. And so too, and we have twice, we're saying Baruch Shem, and that is 2 times 24, that's 48, that's Chayil. Eshes Chayil Ateres Ba'ala. That's a woman of valor, which means Malchus, that is engaged in bringing Elokus through applying the will of God, Keser, in the actual physical Maaseh HaMitzvos, that actually will bring the Malchus to become Keser. And therefore, through Maaseh HaMitzvos, we can actually be Nagdishach and Naritzach. We will talk much more about it, and the Rebbe will elaborate, but here is few words from the Rebbe Maharash about Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Eshes Chayil Ateres Ba'ala. So we should experience the Geula Amitis V'Ashleima tonight, and Eshes Chayil Taka with the Malchus will show its origin in the Keser and will be mashpia on all the other spheres.